A warm crumpet is one of my favorite morning treats, and I've got the secret to show you how to get all those lovely little holes that hold in the melted butter and honey or jam that you spread on top. So it's a two-step dough process. So I'm going to make the yeast dough portion first. I'll start by measuring my dry ingredients. First, 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour. I also need 1/3 cup of bread flour. Bread flour has a higher protein content, so it holds in all the air that the yeast produces. Just 2 teaspoons of sugar, and that's more to get the yeast activated. And I need 1.25 teaspoons of yeast. I use instant dry yeast, so I can stir it right into the dry ingredients. It doesn't need to be dissolved. Now, before I add my water, I need 1/2 teaspoon of cream of tartar. I have 1.25 cups of lukewarm water, and I'll add that to the bowl. Give it a good stir, but there's no need to use a mixer or electric beaters. There we go, it's nice and smooth. So I cover this with plastic wrap, and you set it aside for an hour. After an hour, look at how it bubbles up. And now for the second part of this recipe. First, I need to heat 1/2 cup of milk just to lukewarm. And that's simply because that's the best temperature for the yeast to thrive and keep growing. Before I add the milk to this dough, my last 2 ingredients, 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. I'll give this a little stir. And this is where the magic happens. I add this all at once to my fluffy dough. It will deflate, but then it's going to bubble up again because the baking soda that's now in the milk is going to react with the cream of tartar that's in this dough, and that's going to create those beautiful holes, the bubbles, the eyes that are inside the crumpet. So at this point, you're gonna find the dough changes. It turns more into a batter, and it's really kind of sticky and sloppy. That's exactly how it's supposed to be. And once you've added that milk mixture, then you're ready to make your crumpets. So you don't let this sit too long after that. I've got a skillet that I'm going to heat on medium. I also have my rings. Crumpets you cook on the griddle almost like pancakes, but yet they're a perfect round shape. So I'm using tart rings for my crumpets. You could use cookie cutters if you wanted to, or even a cleaned tuna tin with the top and the bottom removed. So while my pan heats, I'll give it a good greasing, just with oil. And I also brush the inside of my tart rings with oil. That way, the crumpet won't stick. You want to use a ladle, and this recipe makes about 8 crumpets. I ladle enough batter so it fills about 1/2 inch. The crumpets take about 5 minutes to cook on this side. Partway through cooking your crumpets on the griddle, take an offset spatula, run it along the inside to loosen the crumpet from the tart ring. You can tell when it's time to flip your crumpets because they go from glossy to matte on the surface. And there are those eyes. Now that the surface is matte, what you want to do is take off the ring. I give them just a flip and let them cook only for a minute on the flip side. But that's that lovely toasty browning I love. There we go, I'll take this off the heat. And even though this is a bread you cook in the griddle, you can smell that yeast, and it smells like freshly baking bread. Of course, you have to eat a crumpet while it's warm. And my favorite way, butter, because that melts into all of those little holes, the eyes. And then even better, a touch of honey right on top. What a treat. Now, sometimes those holes go right through to the bottom, so you need a plate and a napkin close by. Oh, I need a cup of tea.